April, while we wait for, I think, a few more people to come on, just really quickly, did you hear from anybody other than Commissioner Reed as far as if there were others that were not able to attend today's meeting?
I have not heard from anyone other than Commissioner Reed.
Okay. George, it's entirely up to you whether you want to kick things off or not. As chair, it is 1:33. We might get a few more people joining us.
Haley Ray, did you say we should start the meeting or wait a couple minutes?
Oh, it's entirely up to you is what I said.
Well, we'll just wait a couple of minutes and then we'll go.
Sure thing.
Jimmy.
Jim, it looks like at one point you might have been talking, but you were muted. Apologies if I. No. Okay.
So just an FYI, Ellie, without Commissioner Reed, the only committee member who we are missing is Caroline Scott.
Thanks, April. That was exactly what I was thinking.
I was thinking the same thing. Well, I mean, shall we start the meeting, everybody?
Sure.
So can I call the meeting of July 19th to order and then have roll call? So everybody who's attending, just state your name and your blood type, please.
Oh, go right ahead, Jim. Sorry.
I'm Jim Whaley.
My Collins B positive.
Debbie Lane.
Gina Lytle.
Kara Snyder. I'm Ellie Ray. I'm a planner in the city's community development department.
Good afternoon, all. This is Chris Brink, Community Development Director for the city.
And I'm April Sparks, Administrative Assistant for the Community Development Department, and I'm going to follow the mayor's lead. I'm O positive.
Is that everybody other than me?
This is Joel Peden.
Oh. Well, I don't have everybody in one place. It's this thing in a row. So I think that was everybody. And I'm George McCauley. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, George. I believe, did Dr. G introduce himself?
Oh, great. Dr. G. Okay.
Hello, interested member of the public. Well,
and I'm George McCauley, chair of the ADA Compliance Committee. Thank all of y'all for coming to the meeting today. And the minutes that we received was the November the 16th, and it was a lot. Are there any questions or additions to those minutes?
I have a correction. This is Gina Lytle.
Okay.
One of the members listed, their last name was incorrect. It should be Sue, S-U, Debris, D-E, capital B-R-E-E. And that's Keno.
Thank you, Gina. And this isn't really a correction, but it's just a point that I talked to the city about at the time, on the minutes, page 6, at the 120.38 time slot, the Tony Zammit from the Rotary Club, mentioned about the accessible trail. It's listed again as ADA, and I know that Mark, I'm sorry, not Mark, but Brad, is it Langsather? Did I say it correctly?
Yes.
Langsather?
That's correct.
So Brad, that knows everything about it and gives everybody good information. I talked to Brad about this. The city needs to really, I would ask the city to please make sure that word ADA trail it's incorrect. And a lot of people have problems, they're questioning it. So in the future, let's go ahead and call that the accessible trail. Ooh, that's great. So that would be great for everybody. And I think we'll get less phone calls about under the misunderstanding of that trail. So thank you.
I think the term accessible trail is still incorrect. Accessible implies it's an ADA. You do it and I'm struggling for a word, but a easy trail,
I would call it an open lands trail.
something like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't call it an accessible trail because that does imply ADA accessible.
Just to clarify, they choose the terminology of accessible trail based on the guidelines that they follow from the National Forest Service related to open lands trails. So that's how they landed on that one.
Okay.
But we will certainly correct the minutes to reflect that it is an accessible. Thank you, George, for noting that. I didn't catch that myself, but you are correct. It is not an ADA accessible trail. And I believe, and I need to check with Brad, but I think that they were going to get an interpretive sign that kind of denotes the features of the trail so that user groups can assess based on its characteristics, whether it's something that they can access or not, which will be a huge help.
Yeah, Brad had mentioned, Brad made it clear to me that the term for that trail, according to I think it's the Department of Agriculture or Forest Service, it is accessible trail. And we don't have it at this point, but there will be that sign. And I think that one's called a medium, not easy, but that should, when that sign's there, it's going to be clear. But the proper term for that in terms of government is accessible trail. And we can decide something else. The city can decide something else, but that's where I'm getting that term from.
I think an open lands accessible trail would be more descriptive. That's just my opinion.
I would think that, go ahead, Gina.
I'm looking to get direction. I think this is kind of a federal thing on how to classify these different trails. And I know that grading and stuff, the more descriptive we can be. And I think the sign that the city's planning on using will help people understand so that they'll be able to navigate it. Or determine if they have the means capable to navigate it.
I understand. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, Ellie Ray, can we, can the city can designate that in some fashion that, if Brad says that it's called accessible trail, can the city decide to maybe use that as part of the name, but make it, like Gina said, something extremely understandable? Could we just add something to the name?
I can confer with Brad. I would assume though, in all honesty, if the sign's been purchased, those things don't come cheap. So correcting that if it's already been printed might be a easier thing. But I can talk to him because I don't know where things stand with that. Okay. I know that they've been working on repairing that trail since it got washed out in the storms.
That's correct. Yeah. Yes. Okay. And when people talk, I don't know who it is, so I'm sorry if I won't, because I'm only seeing one 4 people, and one of them's me. So sorry if I won't know who it is talking. I don't know how to do that. So if that's all the discussion about the minutes, I would entertain a motion to accept the minutes. Does
Also
somebody
move,
want to make a motion?
I'll move to accept the minutes.
Thank
I'll
you.
second.
We have a second.
Yes, Gina seconds.
Fantastic. All in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed? Fantastic. That passed. Now we're on to regular items, and A is ADA concerns and complaints. We all saw the email that there are none. Have there been any additions to that, Ellie Ray?
There have not been, George.
Fantastic. Okay, excellent. And review, item B, review of initial accessibility survey findings. Is that you, Ellie Ray?
Myself and Kara Snyder.
Okay. Excellent.
So this one, we weren't going to go into this too exhaustively, but we wanted to provide you with the PDF that is sort of the distillation of like the high level question responses from members of the public. Obviously, this isn't as nuanced as the rest of the information we have, which gives some feedback where people provided written comments when asked certain questions. But this survey we had running for just a little over a month. I think you'll recall that we talked about launching it at our last meeting. I think it launched about a week or so after we last met. But we had 68 unique responses. About 200 people visited the site altogether to scope it out. And about 40% of the people that responded were themselves people who are disabled, classify themselves as disabled, and the remainder are people who are friends or family members of those who are disabled or their provider in the community. We found that over half of them were people who are over the age of 55, which kind of tracks as you age. You know, we all start to fall apart in varying degrees. So that kind of shows that. And a large number of them, though, are 18 to 54. So that's also, I think, interesting as a fact. The bulk of people, over, close to 2/3 of them live in the city. About 90% in total live in the county, and the rest are from outside. Most people responded saying that they have mobility issues. And obviously this was, when we asked that question, people could check as many things as apply. So obviously people have co-occurring disabilities. And then we started to get into the questions about transportation access and parks and city facilities. So as you might've seen when you went through that, most people get around by using cars. A lot of people do find that there are barriers to getting to places in the city. I should note that with these questions, when people were offered a chance to provide a written response to what they experience themselves or see those around them experience, we will hopefully have the time in the next 2 months, Kara and me, to go through all of the responses we got and sort of categorize what we were hearing from people. And on the basis of that, we should be able to see if there's a need to produce additional surveys to the community. As a first pass, I'd say we had a pretty good response. I know that this has been an area that George has noted over the years in his involvement with this board, where it's been a struggle to sometimes engage with disabled populations. So in a first instance, I think that this was a good place to start. But people, let us know about all the different areas where they find that there are barriers getting around using sidewalks and other infrastructure. Most people have used parks, which is great to hear. We got a pretty varied response as far as the ones that they actually utilize, of the largest ones that we wanted to fit in to the survey. Obviously, the city has more than just what we put in here. And we found that people use them with a pretty solid amount of frequency, which is great to see. And the survey goes on and on. I don't know how much you want me to talk about it and the other responses that we got, but we're excited in the first instance with how this went. And hopefully we'll figure out ways to engage further. Kara, do you have anything that you want to add without, again, going through all the different pages of this document? Yeah, I don't think so. There was quite a few kind of other responses that are probably not represented here that I think, like Ellie said, it'll take us a little bit of time to sift through. And I apologize. I gave a terrible introduction, but I'm one of Ellie's coworkers. I'm the housing coordinator for the city of Helena. So it's my first ADA meeting and I'm super excited to be here. Carol will have the distinct privilege at some point in time of assuming the mantle fully of being the city's ADA coordinator. You'll see a lot more of me. So yeah, she's dipping her toes into it right now. Did anybody have any questions though about what we had in this 24-page breakdown of the responses? Yes, George.
I don't, Kara, welcome to the city staff. Haven't met you, but welcome to the city staff. And
Thank you, George. Yeah, I appreciate that.
You're very welcome. I looked at that. I think that report is like 36 pages, I think. I mean, it's a lot, or maybe it was 36, including the minutes, but it's really, really detailed. And I really appreciate y'all gathered a lot of information from those responses. So thank you. And I've read it. I don't remember most of it, but it's something that I'll go back to because I thought it was fascinating. So thank y'all very much. And it could be that, y'all decide to do it, like you said, Ellery, do it again at some point. But thank you. Thank you all very much for doing that.
We owe a lot of thanks to Jake Garson, the city's public information officer, too.
Absolutely, yes.
He's not with us today, but he put in quite a bit of time getting this live online. So just want to make sure that he gets a pat on the back for that.
Yep.
Virtually.
Is there any more discussion about that survey?
I think my general impression of the survey was that by and large, the city was in a good or excellent ranking on most of the items. I mean, and so in general, we didn't rank too bad. The one comment was that it probably had, I think it had excellent, good, and poor, and didn't have really a neutral, I mean, a more iffier, so good implies you're doing good, but between good and poor, there wasn't a category to select. But all in all, I thought it generally reflected generally well on the city.
Thank you, Jim, for the comment about the neutral position, because if we do future surveys, that's a good thing to note.
If there's no further discussion, we'll move on to item C, which has to do with me. In the agenda, the motion that's not the correct wording. It's very simple, but I'd like to just before I make the motion, I'd like to just make a statement. I've said this so many times to everybody. This motion has nothing to do with the city's work as the evaluation plan and the prioritization plan. Those things have been moving along. Ellery, I don't remember when we worked on all that, but I was one of the lucky people on the committee to be able to work with the city on that evaluation plan. But that's been moving along and it's an ongoing process. I realize that. And as I'm trying to remember when it passed, I mean, when y'all finally came up with the plan, I think it was like 11.4 million. And maybe that was 10 years ago. I don't remember how long ago, but I'm sure it's a lot more. But I know that's an ongoing project. And I thank the city. We all thank the city for doing that. The motion I'm about to make has to do with, let's call it everyday quality of life, living, walking, driving, those issues, not the big issue of the evaluation plan and the prioritization plan. In all the years it started with Greta, our code enforcement officer many years ago, sending images of the same people that, I don't know all the right words, that commit infractions of our complaint-driven ordinances, and nothing happens to them. They keep doing it. So as I said in the last meeting, y'all have, I don't know, hundreds of images from me. And then I want to say Melissa, whose last name I forgot, whose husband owns a bike shop. Many of us sent images. So I continued to send them, not always as a complaint, but for information so that the city could see the complaint-driven process is not the only solution. It's only a part of the solution. But if it was indeed working, I wouldn't be sending in the same people, and I still see them, still today doing the same things. So I think it was last year that, talking to our wonderful head of streets, transportation services, David Konofsky, this one family that lives across the street from my studio, my other studio on Malfunction Junction, I said, David, let's just go to those people and give them a ticket. And David said, we can't do that. And all y'all think I'm crazy, but I never knew the code enforcement officers had no power. They could only ask someone to comply. I was shocked. Subsequent to that conversation with David, I've mentioned it to not just my friends who are disabled, but other people who are politically active. They were equally shocked, as was many entities that deal with the disabled community. For instance, Good Sam, Disability Rights Montana, United Way, they had no idea. So here is my motion based on this, what I see as a problem. Given that complaint-driven ordinances are unenforceable because our code enforcement officers can only ask for compliance, I asked the city to allow the code enforcement officers to issue fines for infractions. I'm not saying that we should do away with the complaint-driven, because I went that route 10 years ago, but the city didn't want to do that. So we have My Helena, the app that definitely works, but people continue to do the same things and ignore the requests of our code enforcement officers. So I believe this is a way to help the problem that is rampant all over our city. That's my motion. And thank y'all for bearing with me for the explanation.
I have a question. Will the code enforcement be able to ticket or give fines for parking violations as well?
So Gina, thank you. And I know that, remember in the peer group meeting, when that whole came up, I brought the officer in to talk to us about that. Then we find out that the city, Mr. Mayor, if I have this incorrectly, please correct me. We were told that when the city was rewriting codes, that code was left out so that a police officer cannot ticket somebody for parking illegally in an accessible parking spot. So Gina, I don't know the answer to that. That would be something maybe the mayor, or Mayor Collins, or the city attorney would answer. I'm sorry, I don't know the answer. I know the problem.
I talked to the city attorney 3 years ago when we had that issue.
Yep.
Or almost 4 now, about that violation and ticketing. And they said that there was nothing on the books in Helena. And Mayor, correct me if I'm wrong, but I did speak with the city attorney, and they said that needed to be changed so that it could be enforced.
Thanks for having me at your meeting. I sincerely appreciate being here. And I will tell you this, like I told George earlier on, whatever direction this committee wants to go, I'll support it because I have seen the continuous disregard for the rules and ordinances we have. And so if we're looking at trying to ticket people for for just blatant disregard of the rules, I will support that. And it doesn't have to be the court. We do have those court enforcement people that are walking around. Maybe we can add to that and let them, and I don't know how we would do it, but we can work with the attorneys to see how best we can add that part to the court enforcers that walk around and ticket people. If they can ticket cars for parking too long in one spot, it's not an added duty to ticket someone who screw up the ADA walkway. So I don't see a problem with that. And however you write it, in fact, tomorrow I'll be meeting with the city manager. I'll bring it up with him and see how best we can move forward with that.
Okay, I'd like to add that right now, the way the accessible parking is enforced is that a police officer has to write the ticket. And there are 4 police officers on duty for the city of Helena at any given time. And so we would have to, and I believe the way I understood it from the city attorney is the way it's charged. It's more like a criminal offense where they have to go before a judge and stuff.
And Gina, I hear what you're saying, but that was 4 years ago.
Okay.
And I'm saying that we may be able to make headway and change some of the things around to make it work. So
I'm really excited about that.
So I will definitely be talking to the city manager tomorrow, and I will email you, George, and we'll go from there.
So the city has a number of code enforcement officers. When you're talking about code enforcement officer, are you talking about police officers, building code enforcement officers, or the parking? Who do you mean?
The parking.
So
The parking should be able to do that.
Okay, so when we're talking about parking or sidewalks, you're talking about the parking enforcement people.
That's what I'm referring to. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm referring to the 2, and I forgot their names. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we do have also code enforcement officers that are separate from the parking guys.
Right.
Those guys don't have the authority to issue tickets, but the parking guys have the authority. And that's why I said, in order not to rewrite everything, we can just, and I'm saying this, I'm not sure how it works, but we will find out where we can just add that to the parking enforcement. When they see that kind of thing going on, they should be able to issue tickets also, since they're already doing it.
So we have, I think, a city ordinance that requires people to shovel their sidewalks within 24 hours of an event.
Mm-hmm.
And we have handicap parking designated spots. I assume that is a city ordinance as well. Is that a city ordinance that we have required?
Can I clear this up? I mean, excuse me for interrupting everybody. This motion is not necessarily about parking and accessible parking. It is anything to do with streets and sidewalks that is complaint driven, that our 2 code enforcement officers under transportation services would come to your home and say, George, you haven't shoveled, please shovel. Then I don't shovel, and they come back and tell me again. All they can do is ask. So those are kind of 2 different things. Primarily, I'm talking about anything to do with our sidewalks, or let's say not just shoveling, but debris. I'll be quick. Cleaning services. Take those 4-inch hoses. They run them across the sidewalks. Well, it's not an ADA issue. You can't block. There's a city, maybe it's not a law, city ordinance. You can't block a sidewalk. So this affects all of us, not just ADA. But the main thing is that we take complaint-driven ordinances and have our code enforcement officers have some ability to actually enforce them. As a person from staff said to me recently, if we're not going to enforce them, we might as well get rid of them, which I think is a bad idea. But the thing about parking is a police officer can issue a notice to appear. That is a state statute, not a city ability. It's a state statute. But that ticket, notice to appear, must go to a human being, not the car. So no police officer has the time to find the driver. So, and sort of, I want to explain the other thing. When I do have letters of support for this, and our Mayor Collins also said he would support it. There's another commissioner I can't speak for her, she's not here. There are two other commissioners that would support this if y'all pass the motion. But as I said to the commissioners, our only ability is to make a recommendation to the city. We do not have to determine how to do it. That's why we have the mayor, city commission, and city manager and city attorney. And I know this is complicated, but our job is to make a recommendation. I don't know that it's not our responsibility to solve how to do it. I mean, that's my opinion.
So George, the current statute we have an ordinance, but we don't have any penalty associated with that statute right now, or ordinance.
The only thing they can do is ask you to comply. That's it.
Okay. So what you're proposing is that we amend that ordinance to include a penalty and perhaps even a penalty for first, second, and subsequent offenses.
And it's not in the motion, but as David and I have been working together on this, if code enforcement officer comes to your house the first time, we love education. That person tells me why I should not park across the sidewalk or why I should shovel. The first one is purely education. And for many people that works. Doesn't work usually, but for many people it does. So the first one, we give them a what do you call it? A
warning.
A warning. And I'm all for that. Absolutely. Yeah. But
we have those chronic ones that do not do anything. Nothing will make them change. So that's when so George is right. You have the ability right now to make that motion, pass that motion, and give it to us and let us work further. But if we stand here and argue about how and things that's not in this motion, and we create more problems for ourselves, so to speak, because I understand the gist of the motion. And so we'll be able to take it further. So that's my 1 cent, and I'll shut up.
I want to encourage that the motion include that the code enforcement can enforce parking as well. As a disabled person, that's a huge priority.
So Gina, I'm telling you, I'm all for that, but I don't know if that part, I don't know if that's two issues. I don't know that, but how about this? Mayor, tell me if I'm getting this right. Can that be in the motion? And Mr. Mayor, if that's not part of the same working group,
we can amend it.
Okay, I got you. Okay. So do I have to make the motion again and say what Gina said, or given that Gina already said it? I accept her addition.
So if Gina, you move for an amendment to the proposal?
I do.
I'll second that amendment.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Say aye. All those opposed, same sign. So I want to thank you all. I've been working on this for a long time.
So
I want to thank, no, is that,
No.
oh, we got to vote, sorry. No, wait, we voted.
no, we voted on the amendment. Now you need to. Has anyone seconded your amendment?
Can I have?
Now
a
you need to make the motion for that, for the,
amendment?
yeah, you need to make the motion and then someone will second it and then we vote on the total proposal.
So do I have a, shoot. What am I supposed to do, Mayor?
All right, I move that we accept George's proposal to have the traffic enforcement people enforce the parking and have the ability to fine both parking and snow removal violations and other violations regarding ADA.
I, Gina Lytle, second the motion.
I think we want to just clarify really quickly, Jim, not other violations.
Yeah,
related. Okay, but keep it focused on parking and sidewalks.
Okay.
So all those, I'm lost. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. So the motion with the amendment has passed. And I want to thank y'all for going along with this. Thank you, Mayor. I know you and I have discussed this quite a bit. I really appreciate you chiming in to go along with this. That means a lot to me. And to the committee, I can't thank y'all enough. Thank you. And the disabled community who's been behind this, thanks y'all from the bottom of their hearts. So thank you.
So
Thanks, George.
just as a point of clarification, George, what's going to be required now is a letter from you signed as chair, because you still get to be chair until your term expires. So we'll need a letter from you detailing exactly what the motion is as represented, as voted on by this advisory group. So
I email you a thing. I email you something and sign it. Is that correct?
That I think will suffice now. Typically they're hand signatures, but I think in the digital age that we're operating in, you're fine with that. That'll suffice.
No, I don't mind writing it.
You're welcome to.
So I talk about my motion and Gina's amendment.
Yeah, you put everything together and send it to Ellie, and when it gets to us, then we start discussion.
Yep.
Okay.
And then it goes on to the city manager and he will review things and it will likely move forward to the commission beyond then, but he's going to be the gatekeeper in this instance.
That's correct.
For how and when it moves forward to the commission.
Right.
So just I got it. So I write it or I email it to you.
Correct. Either will be fine.
Okay, I will do that. Okay.
Thank you.
Now, we're moving on to public comment. Is there anyone with public comment?
I see Joel has his hand up.
He does
Joel?
indeed.
So I'm sorry. I see it. I'm sorry, Joel. Go ahead.
Hi, George. First of all, I want to say thank you to you and the committee for making the effort to raise that concern on path of travel. I know this is so important to you, and it's something that you've been working on for a long, long time. So the committee, but specifically you, George, now we'll get to carry it forward, right? And make sure that it happens. Couple things that I would just like to bring attention to as this amendment moves forward, as this request moves through the process, that the the parking officers, if I understand and remember correctly, only work in the downtown area.
That is correct, Joel.
Okay, so so Gina, by bringing that forward, it's a great step, and it really is going to allow us to move the conversation forward. I just wanted to bring that up, that the issue goes beyond just the downtown area, and part of it needs to be, the city needs to be accountable, go back into the codes, fix what got left out the last time so that it doesn't have to be given to the person, that it can be left on the car like any other parking violation. And another option, they used to have a citizens group that was trained and authorized to issue accessible parking violations. But as many good things, sometimes it runs the course. That could possibly be, and I would hope that we would look at that again to increase the number of people that have their eyes out there and are working. So it's something that's, that Helena's had in the past and might be a good discussion going forward. The other part of it, coming back to sidewalks, is it's the clearing of the sidewalks, but it also is repairing sidewalks. And there's not a good remedy that works. I'm not even going to that works quickly, but efficiently, when a complaint is filed with a sidewalk that is in disrepair. And I'll use the example. It's been now going on 3 years. I went through that complaint-driven process on a large section of sidewalk along 11th Street. There was 40-some violations between Walgreens and Cruz. Many of those have been fixed, and kudos to those folks that did that. But the worst violations, the most dangerous ones, have still not been addressed. When I called a follow-up with the enforcement officers, they say that it is now out of their hands because it is sitting at the city attorney's office, and that's the process that it goes through there. But it's kind of like an elephant graveyard. It goes there to die. And I continue to say that, go next time you're down 11th Street, on the north side of the street, there's still 4 or 5 sections that are impassable. I choose to ride in the street. I take 11th Street almost daily back and forth to my office. I choose to ride in the street because it's safer than riding on the sidewalk, and that's not right. And it shouldn't take 3 years to get something fixed. If that was a city street, it would be fixed immediately. And we're talking major 4, 5, 6 inch heaves in these sidewalks. So as we continue this discussion, I think it's imperative for this committee to stay active in this. And you've done a great job to get it this far. But as all of us who advocate on a regular basis know that we have to continue, and we have to make sure that actions are taken. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for being willing to take this up. Thank you to the committee once again, and I appreciate all of you. Thanks.
Thank you, Joel. And Joel, I'll add that the Walgreens, their truncated dome has been broken and parts missing for, 8 years. Yeah. the next, so public comment, member
Oh,
communicate.
So George, before we get off that on regarding the sidewalks that are in disrepair, I had asked Ellie to have the city manager and attorney look into the city's responsibility to repair those when city trees are the cause of that. I know if my tree blows on in the neighbor's house, I'm responsible for his repairs. I mean, I'm liable for it. It seems to me that the city is responsible for maintaining sidewalks when trees that they've planted, quite frankly, too close to the sidewalk and cause a problem. So I believe it's the city's responsibility to do those repairs. And I know a financial obligation for the city they don't want, but.
And I do have an answer for you, Jim.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing that up again. I conferred with both the outgoing and the new city attorney to determine whose responsibility it is. In each instance, I was told it is the adjacent property owner's responsibility to address the sidewalks. Because I don't have the citation to hand right now for where we get that footing to say that in city ordinances, but that is based on the response based on city ordinances that are adopted. So apologies that I have lost it under, I'm sure it's under Title VII.
Okay.
I'm guessing it's going to be Title VII, Chapter 4, but I could confirm that with the city attorney. But they, again, in both instances under Thomas's office and now under Becky's, that was the answer I received.
So, Ellie Ray, I missed the first part of that. The answer to Jim's was, it is our responsibility, not the city's.
Correct.
I got you. Okay, thank you. Yeah,
Because
that
of
was one of the other thing in the minutes that I realized you were going to tell us. So I'm sorry I missed it at the beginning, Jim.
No, that's okay. That's okay. And that was the minutes for the meeting in May aren't complete yet. April's.
I understand. Yeah, that's fine.
She's got a tall order with all the minutes that are on her on her desk. But yes, that was something that was discussed at the May meeting. I made note of it. I asked both of the city attorney's offices, and that was their response. So,
okay, if you could shoot me a copy of that ordinance, I'd appreciate it.
Yep.
Thanks, Ellie.
Thanks for bringing that up again, Jim.
Ellie Ray, would you copy me on that thing to Jim?
Yep.
Thank you. And Ellie Ray, what would I do without you? Is this the time that I make my statement about the committee?
That is.
I mean, member communication.
You certainly can. Yep.
So I do not know how long I've been on the committee, but September, my time is up. And I think it's time for new blood. And I have been honored to be on the committee. And I've also been honored to work with city staff. And I'm not BSing y'all. I know that I can be critical, but I'm also, what's the other word? I give credit to our city and city staff, but I also can be critical. It's never one or the other. And I think that I'm proud of the work that we've been doing. I've been honored to be on the committee, but I have other entities that would like my help. And I think it's time for me to not re-up on the committee, which happens in September, and somebody else will take over. Jim will be chair. Nobody else wants it. Jim, you're chair. I'm electing you, Jim. So the thing I discussed with Ellie Ray, my plan was, I'm sure that now that y'all, thank y'all for passing the motion with the amendment, the city has plenty to do. The city commission has things ahead of this thing. It's going to take a while for them to decide how to move forward. I wanted to be around, but I'm not going to be around, but I would certainly like to at least be in on the in any way I can as a regular citizen with what's happening. And I won't be at the next meeting. I think I'll be done July. Isn't that right, Ellie Ray? I mean, I won't be in the next meeting.
That would be correct. Your term is up at the start of the month.
So I'm sorry that I won't be around, but y'all have made, I think we've all made a good decision to move forward with this motion. And I'm excited to see how Mayor Collins, the city commission, and our city manager, whom I have not met, will move forward with this, and the city attorney, whom I have not met either. So I just wanted to say, I've been honored to do this, and I'm not BSing y'all. I've loved working with the city. So thank y'all very much. The next thing is.
Well, George, I want to say I appreciate all you've done for this committee over the
Thank you.
years and your dedication for the people with disabilities in our community.
Thank you very much. That means a lot to me. Thank you.
Thank you for your advocacy and service, George.
Thanks.
I know you're still going to be around.
Yeah.
This isn't the
I'll
last
be-
we've seen of you.
Yeah. What would I've done without you, darling? I'm telling you.
Thanks,
Um,
George.
Proposals for next agenda. We're almost done, y'all. Are there, and y'all can always say them now or email them to Ellie Ray. Anything in that agenda item? Nope.
George, really quickly, I just wanted to note that in response to the information that you wanted me to send to both yourself and Jim about sidewalks, the reference in city ordinance, it's 748.
When-
The repair
I'll
of
just
sidewalks.
say it again, I'll write it down.
Yeah, sure thing. 748, Title 7, Chapter 4, Section 8. Just so
Gotcha.
you know, and really quickly, just the start of it says, whenever any sidewalk, curb, and gutter which is now or which may, by reason of natural deterioration or decay, or by reasons of unevenness, rapid slopes, or from any cause whatever, becomes unfit or unsafe for public travel or dangerous to public safety, city engineer shall require the owner of the premises abutting the sidewalk, curb, and gutter, or his agent to immediately repair the same. So,
I remember that thing. Yeah, thank you.
so apologies,
Thank you.
I didn't have it to hand. I found it for you.
Are there any meetings of interest or any announcements anyone has? Well, in that case, everybody, thank y'all for coming. I will entertain a motion to adjourn. I think I'm supposed to do that, right?
Correct.
Have a motion? May I have a motion to adjourn?
No, we're not going to adjourn. We're just going to make you stay on as chair. But we're not gonna
I'd love
adjourn.
to, but I think it's time for you to take over. Oh, y'all, I'll tell you. Y'all made me very happy. Thank you. And well, then I'm gonna flap my wings and say I make a dadgum motion that we adjourn the meeting until September. And Jim, you're gonna second it.
Second.
Thank y'all very, very much. And Ellie Ray, my friend, I'll type that thing up and email it to you.
You can, or you can hand deliver it, whatever works for you.
Oh,
Oh.
y'all are in your offices, correct?
Oh, yes. Although I'm
Okay.
working remotely tomorrow and Friday, so please don't come then.
Okay.
If you want
I
to
won't.
see me.
Okay. Well,
Thanks,
thank
George.
y'all.
Thanks, everyone.
See ya,
Good
George.
stuff today.
Bye-bye, y'all. Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.